What are some of the worst business practices you've seen? In the town I grew up, there was this guy who ran a music store. The kind that sells musical instruments. He would sell brand new stuff at 50 to 60% discount. Hell, a friend of mine haggled a brand new Gibson guitar off the shelf for maybe 75% off. I bought several cymbals off him dirt cheap. For you drummers out there, Sabian AA, not crap. Turns out, his family was filthy rich, old money, and running the store was his hobby, just something to do. He would sit there, smoke, discuss which Zappa record was the best, and basically give stuff away. It was awesome. And terrible business. Edit: a lot of you seem to suggest that this is some kind of money laundering scheme, but if you want to launder money, maybe run a business that does more than a $1,000 monthly revenue? He's probably not in business anymore, but then again, I haven't lived there for 20-odd years. You'd never guess he was super rich. He had that basic 40-something, brown leather jacket, ponytail, chain-smoking kind of, I live in my mom's basement, vibe. This was in Norway in the mid-90s. I guess they got him the store to get him out of the house. Who knows? If you strayed in there, you'd almost be held hostage by his never-ending stories and promise of maybe getting that Boss pedal for $15. It was more weird than cool. Anyway, sometimes weird is cool. And I still have one of the symbols. So this store put a massive discount on weighted blankets. They were originally selling for $150, but were now being offered for $39.99. The catch? You'd need to sign up for free as a VIP member online. Okay, no harm done. So I signed up, and bought the blanket. And so did thousands of other people. The store canceled our orders and refunded our money, claiming that they weren't able to fulfill our orders. And now they had a couple thousand more new names on their mailing list. And sure enough, marketing emails came pouring through. I unsubscribed once, but still had emails coming in. FU Spotlight, Australia. Spotlight posted my wife vouchers that were only able to be used in store. Their store was click and collect, or delivery only, during the height of the pandemic. Spotlight refused to allow them to be used in store, and refused to extend the offer and state. Spotlight sent a lot of these to VIP customers in Victoria. So rude. I use the term business loosely, but I once did graduate research with a professor who was in the process of trying to get a major auto manufacturer to invest in our lab. They liked us, but wanted an example of some of our work. So, rather than directing them to some publications of ours, my professor gave them a zip file containing all of our recent unpublished research, including the basis for a patent application. My professor was shocked when they just kept it. Any company/service that allows you to sign up using the internet with minimal verification, but requires you to either produce ID, bills, proof of address, or show up in person to cancel that service. If I can set it up via the internet, I should be able to cancel using the internet, too. I heard this one from a friend. She worked at a dog kenneling business that would tour prospective clients through the front of the building and show off how each dog would get its own indoor/outdoor run area, and specialized attention, etc. Then when Thanksgiving and Christmas came, and they got more bookings than they could accommodate, they set up cages and stacked kennels in a back room, and people were paying big dollars, thinking that their dogs were in a nice roomy pen, while the business crammed as many dogs as they could into these basic cages. It was shameful. Trying to get employees to quit. My managers at fast food didn't want to keep long-term employees, due to having to pay them more, and firing them means unemployment costs. Us quitting means no unemployment, and not having to give raises. Edit: thanks for all the upvotes and the award. Never thought it would get so popular. To answer a question as to why I didn't force them to fire me, broke college student. They had flexible hours, and I got a free meal. I worked at a restaurant that wouldn't let people get a refund on their food, even though there was a cockroach in it. Instead, they offered a 10% discount on the food as per their policy. Needless to say, this restaurant no longer exists. Gosh, how many cockroaches did they serve? In the short time I worked there, it happened 4 times on my shift and several others when I wasn't working. Owners did very little in the way of maintenance. It wasn't in a good location, and the customers weren't rich by any means. I guess they just got lucky, until they served a roach to the wrong person. To be honest, I don't know the exact reason they shut down. I worked as a food service manager for a large hotel chain, let's call it Chariot hotels. The general hotel manager wouldn't approve repairs/replacements of equipment unless we were expecting an inspection in the next 2 to 3 months. The immediate bad effect of this was a lot of negative reviews. Our ice maker broke, so we had to send employees to the other side of the hotel to get ice from an ice machine to make iced coffee, smoothies, etc., resulting in extremely long wait times for iced drinks. We also lost money because a lot of the cold food, like chicken salad, can be made in bulk and stored for a few days in the fridge. Unfortunately, half of our fridges didn't cool properly, so we had to make a lot of foods fresh every day and discard a lot of food. Lastly, I quit when I got tired of requesting repairs that never happened. 2 weeks later, they got an early inspection and an exceptionally bad score for a chain. They passed, but just barely. The general manager blamed it on the former food service manager, me, and I believe she still manages the hotel to this day. I used to serve at a restaurant where we wore pagers that buzzed us when a table's food was ready. Good idea, right? Well, the owners had the policy that you had to immediately go pick up the food, no matter what, and that included if you were in the middle of taking another table's order. They said that people understand and are cool with it. Of course they weren't, though. Every time I stopped taking a table's order and went and got the food, they were totally pissed off. I could not believe the owners did not understand why literally no other restaurant on the planet does it that way. I worked for a big car rental company in the returns department. They would push us to find and charge customers for any new damage on their cars by awarding bonuses on top of our monthly salary. We were given mirrors to look for scratches under the cars where customers would normally not have checked before they rented the car, often leading to heated arguments over if it really was their fault or not. The company did not care either way, and made us charge their insurance deposit if they refused to pay. I sort of felt this, thanks for confirming. I once rented a Porsche for a weekend. Literally drove to my girlfriend's, 50 miles, stayed the weekend, drove back again. Car was still immaculate. Dropped it off, nothing said. 2 months later, get a charge on my card for £1,000. So, I call them up, they say the windscreen was chipped and needed to be completely replaced. The windscreen was fine. So argue this with them, and call up my credit card, get them to put a hold on that charge. Tell the car company, get me some proof. Time goes by, nothing. I call them back, they say, they still waiting. This goes by, still nothing. I call them back, the girl says it's been repaired at a different branch, it was £90. So, I say, hold on, you're charging me £1,000. Yes. But you just told me it was £90? No, I didn't. Yes, you did. Do you record all your calls? Yes, we do. Then I want a copy of this call, under the Freedom of Information Act, specific UK legislation. She puts me in hold, comes back in 5 minutes, we'll waive all charges. 2 months later, they still haven't cancelled the charge to my card, so I call them, hello, what are you playing at? Oh, we've lost your car hire voucher. The one you gave us when you collected the car. You need to send us your copy. No. I don't. You just need to cancel the charge. But we need a voucher, and we've lost yours, so we need you to send us yours. No. You obviously had my voucher, because you handed the cars over to me. If you've lost, that's your fault, and your problem. You cancel the charge immediately, and go looking for this lost voucher in your own time. Charge canceled. So, how many other people do they try this with, and how many just pay? I briefly worked at a FedEx shipping center. The first hour of orientation was basically, if you even think the word union, we'll end your effing bloodline. First job ever was at Walmart. They too had an anti-unionizing video during orientation. To the tune of, organizers just want to take your money. Sam's Club, being an offshoot of Walmart, has the same video. It was, no kidding, the first and only thing they really cared about showing us. The rest of the training didn't really matter. My wisdom tooth operation was up, which they under-anesthetized me for, so I went back 2 days later. They admitted their fault, and that they would fix it there and then, but it would cost me equivalent $500. I said no way, this is your screw-up. They eventually agreed. I took the woozy pill they gave me, as it was gonna be big work in there. Operation went as planned, and while I was not even with it, they charged me the money, then booted me out onto the street. I was almost hit by a bus, as I had no awareness of anything. Found it all out later on from a friend, who happened to be passing, and saw me playing with cars on a dual-lane road, and B, an acquaintance in the waiting room, who had watched me pay. Ironically, I was there, due to their daughter's recommendation. Reminds of when my Nana got work done at Aspen Dental. She was told her insurance covered it. Well, weeks go by, and she gets a bill from the dental place. They said the insurance didn't cover it, so she had to pay. Which she did. A week later, her insurance contacts her, asking if she was going to pay. Why did she ask them to pay? Turns out that the dental place was lying and trying to double bill everyone. My Nana turned over all the evidence to insurance company, and they raised holy heck at the dental place. They immediately refunded my Nana's money, with apologies, saying that they made a mistake. Major banks sorting your transactions, when you have a low balance, in such a way, to maximize overdraft fees. Honestly, overdraft fees in general. Many banks will charge you an overdraft, and deny the transaction. Because apparently it costs them $35 to deny a transaction. My local Subway, and their perpetual stew of meatballs. Every day they make meatballs to be used on their meatball marinara sandwich. But every day they never use all of them, so they put the leftover ones into the refrigerator to be used the next day. This is fine. You can get away with it, since it's held in appropriate temperatures during the day, and kept refrigerated overnight. The problem comes after they make more. Instead of keeping the old and new batch of meatballs separate, they cook off new meatballs and just add them to the old meatball container. So, technically, there could be one meatball floating around in there, that is months old, before it finally gets scooped up, and placed on a sandwich. Hostility towards raises. Rewarding your existing employees is almost always cheaper than hiring new. I've had a manager that scoffed at a single 3% raise for someone who had no raise for 5 years. Good luck hiring a new person with that experience and for less money. There's a reason why job hopping gets you more money, and it's not because hiring new is cheaper. Not as bad as some of the practices in this post, but a local coffee shop owner near me pressures customers into bringing their own cups. Normally I wouldn't mind this, as hey, we all got to do our part to save the environment. Thing is, the owner doesn't do it for the environment, he does it because he doesn't want to buy take-away coffee cups. I heard him argue with another customer one day, telling her he's sick of her using his cups rather than her own. The whole thing came off so cheap and tacky. I stopped going there for coffee. If the owner is upset about buying 5-cent cups, he's probably cutting corners in other places too. Burnell Productions in Renton, just outside Seattle, constantly lie, cheat and steal from their customers. When confronted, the CEO pleads poverty and needs money to pay bills. The CEO was declared bankrupt in 2020, wiping the debt he had on 13 credit cards. Meanwhile he, the CEO, also has a condo that he hasn't paid his mortgage on for almost a year. Then there's over $40,000 spent on a mobile game, which he does not acknowledge, because he has an addiction problem. A veterinarian I once worked for tried to make me reuse bloody IV tubing between patients. Just rinse it out, he told me. He charged the same amount for a pain injection for a 5-pound pet and a 150-pound pet. He overworked and underpaid his employees. He was rude to his clients and tried to make staff carry out tasks they were not qualified/educated to do. He would cut corners in any possible way. Several of us reported him to the board. In the "there ought to be a law" category, free trials that require a credit card and which do not auto-expire. Ridiculous. It's a transparent bait and switch. If you don't think they will buy it for the advertised price after a free trial, then maybe try something more honest? Like metered service? Editing to add, a lot of people are posting helpful tips on avoiding this. I appreciate it. But the fact that these workarounds even exist, on such a large scale, just provides further proof that it shouldn't be a thing in the first place. As for me, I don't sign up for free trials that require a credit card. But many young people who didn't get financial education, people who aren't native speakers, and frankly folks who aren't the sharpest tools in the shed, fall for it, and that's not okay in my book. Beware of consignment stores, people. Those stores where you can buy used clothing for cheap and also can take years in to be sold. There may be other kinds I don't know of, but the big red flag is, if they do it like this. They offer an agreement, when you sell through them, that they get a percentage of the sale price, but after a certain amount of time, if the item hasn't sold, It becomes their property, and they get full profit. But they allow you to come reclaim your item anytime, before that deadline. Ask them if they would assist you to find your item in the store, should you decide to reclaim it. If they say no, or offer an excuse like, "We don't itemize, so you have to seek it out yourself," then do not do business with them. They are a scam. One example in my town is CJ's Consignment. Not every item may be scammed like this, but they may occasionally pick a high-dollar item and decide they want the full profit. All they do is hide your shit from you. Maybe put it in the back or somewhere customers don't have access to. If you can't find your item, then you can reclaim it in time. They did this to me with a dress, kind of hard to miss, a big-ass gown, amongst shirts and pants, and then after my deadline, my dress magically reappears, now property of CJ's. Even former employees started sharing stories online of how they would hide people's shoes or bags or whatever, so they couldn't claim them before the deadline. Only trust a consignment store that will help you reclaim your item. Or better yet, don't do business with any that have deadlines like that, if such a thing exists. I don't know if this counts, because I didn't actually work there, but I went for a job interview at one of those cheapy party/$2 stores, and the interview questions were insane. Among other things, the interviewer asked if I was Irish, I have a very Irish last name, and what my religion was, specifically whether I was Catholic. He then also asked, "Would you report laws being broken? Sometimes during busy season you may not get your breaks, and will need to stay an extra hour or so, without pay, but you'll have to do it, because we're a family here. Are you a very sensitive person? Often I find that women can be more sensitive and easily offended by things. You're not like that, are you? Are you easily upset by yelling in tone? When things are stressful there can be some yelling can be a bit harsh. Can you deal with that, without getting needlessly offended? What's your confidence level from 1 to 10? We don't want arrogant people, or people who think they know better. When is a time that you've done something for work which you've, morally, disagreed with?" He also said that he wouldn't actually hire me for a permanent part-time role, instead he would hire me for a fixed 3-month period, where he would be watching me constantly, and if I wasn't dedicated enough to the company, I wouldn't get hired again. Essentially, an excuse to fire me, if I don't stay an hour overtime, without pay and I actually take my legal breaks. Needless to say, I did not take the job, and I am considering reporting them to the legal department of my university. How many software companies are using the subscription model now, where instead of buying it once, and it belonging to you, you have to pay a yearly sub price? It's bad enough how quickly they replace everything, but this sub model sucks. Oracle Software. Oracle is a technology company, which uses its one feature product, their database, and uses that product to drive sales and adoption of a slew of inferior garbage software, through incredibly restrictive licensing terms. Mark Benioff, founder and CEO of Salesforce, has a net worth of $8.8 billion, and that is almost exclusively due to giving the market an alternative to Larry Ellison's corporate extortion machine. There's this newfangled online grocery store, Move. If you order something and it's not in stock, they give you a store credit instead of a refund. So many things wrong. How is their inventory management so bad that they don't know what's in stock? I worked for a company that had sales. They just took discontinued products that wouldn't sell, pushed them to the sales floor, and put a sales tag on them, without a discounted price. They saved them for holidays, because they knew people would believe they were sale, and buy them at the original price. The Spectrum Stadium in Philadelphia has a deal with 2 towing companies, where they intentionally make event parking difficult, resulting in people getting towed. They split the fines. This includes directing people to overfilled lots, hoping you get frustrated and park on the side, directing people to lots not for the event, like the Chicky and Pete's restaurant parking, removing the handicap signs, so you can only tell by the painting, etc. My friend dated a security head there, who said, the Spectrum gets almost $100,000 extra a year from their cut of the fines. My employer implemented a new policy. When traveling by flight you are paid for 8 hours for the day. No overtime is allowed. So, difference is, paid and compensatory leave. So, if your travel day takes 10 hours, you get 8 hours normal pay, and 2 hours leave, to take upon return. Leave equals lost production costs. They found out that giving connecting flights can be cheaper on the ticket purchase. So, they give longer flights with layovers. My average travel went from 8 to 10 hours comp per trip, to 16 plus. 6 hours of comp time is more than the initial price of a plane ticket. Some employees like the extra time off, but most hate air travel so much, we'd rather take the shorter trip. On a slightly related note, a company I know changed their travel policy to only reimbursing the cheapest option for a flight, no exceptions allowed. For one employee this meant his expensive direct flight was changed to a cheaper flight with an overnight layover, and I think you can already guess what happened here. Company saved $100 on the flight, but had to sell out an extra $200 plus for a hotel room and dinner. So, I'm a self-employed artist, and I have an online store with my merch on it. People buy stuff, I dispatch it, I say thank you, and if stuff goes wrong, I help as best I can. I have a lot of friends, or acquaintances rather, that do the same. Some don't dispatch shop items for months with no explanation. Some have no intention of dispatching at all. Some are disgustingly rude to customers who ask where their products are, or block anyone who asks questions. A big product a lot of us sell are enamel pins, which are produced cheaply in China and is a very handmade process. I've seen these manufacturers be treated like shit over the tiniest mistakes in batches, and forced chargebacks on them. It's not as severe as some of the stuff in this thread, I'm sure, but my god. It's not hard to be polite and understanding. You should still be nice, even if you feel the customer is wrong. It's not hard to be grateful of customers. Nobody should be waiting 8 months for you to stick a badge in an envelope and get blocked for asking where it is. Pity we're all our own bosses, so even with call-out posts, the same story can go on for years. I managed an accounts payable department that was always getting blasted for paying invoices late. The thing is, we were improving every month, and got our paid on time percentages to an average level for that kind of business. I could not figure it out. Then the entire department got moved to the other side of the country, and an ass ton of money was thrown into the department to fix it. My last week in a conference call, I found out that the company would only pay invoices on Wednesday and would pay invoices due that week. So, if an invoice was late on Sunday, Monday, or Tuesday or that week, it was counted late. My department could have processed every damn invoice on time, and 42% of them would still pay late. That company was a subsidiary of one of the largest corporations in the world, and under that leadership, put in place a year before I started, shrunk by half in the following 2 years. Worked for a doctor in an outpatient interventional radiology center. Tiny place. Only the doctor, manager, and 2 MAs when I got there. No nurse or radiology technician. Doctor was a radiologist, so no real need for a rad tech, I guess, as he could legally operate all the equipment. Doing lower extremity artery cleaning on people all week long. He brings in this young 18-year-old athletic girl that had no business being there honestly, but this guy won't let anyone not get a surgery, 'cause you know, money. Procedures are generally done in 3 trips. 1 to look at the damage and 1 to fix each leg. We get this girl in for her second procedure, after the doctor decides she needs work, and when we go to inject contrast into her incision site, she begins to have a reaction. Apparently she just had a delayed reaction, but she was allergic to what we were pumping into her arteries. She begins to tank and the doctor goes into, "I'm not panicking, but do everything faster than what is humanly possible while I scream at you," mode. Proceeds to have me Google how much medicine to give intramuscular to reverse the reaction, and how much to give IV, so he can quickly decide which direction he wants to go in. While this young girl's vitals are dropping on the table, and I'm thankfully able to pull everything together and help her from bottoming out. Doctor didn't even have a damn AED in the office when I started working there. I had to talk them into getting one. I was sitting in the office the next day, looking for a new job online. For anyone unfamiliar with contrast reaction, if you push enough of it fast enough, and a person has an allergy they are unaware of it, can kill pretty effing quick. Grew up to horror stories from my father, telling me about doing CTs on people and slamming contrast in them, praying that they didn't effing die on the table. DLDR, whack-ass drive, had me Googling how to medically reverse allergic reaction to contrast pumped into a patient on the table in surgery, due to lack of knowledgeable staff and common sense. I'm trying to buy my first home in New Zealand right now, and I can't stand real estate agents. Not that I was ever looking forward to dealing with them. I get that they are there to help the seller, not the buyer, but F me, do they make things difficult. They purposely list homes for sale well below their actual value, so that more people show up to auctions, creating the illusion of demand. They don't tell you how much the owner is looking to sell for, even though they know, not even a ballpark figure. They spin a bunch of shit about the property. One house I looked into was listed as being close to the central business district, despite being a 1.5-hour drive away, during the morning commute. Can't wait until I never have to deal with them again. A couple of tactics/things to be aware of. Showing you a house that is just about to get an accepted offer. Then they tell you it sold the next day, creating the illusion that the market is hot. If they don't want to show you a house that you found yourself, because of, insert bad reason. It might just be because the seller's commission is low, and they don't want to show it to you. Not because there's actually something wrong with it. Sometimes agents will have you sign a contract with them before showing houses. Usually an exclusivity contract, where you can't use a different agent for the next few months. As much as they say it's required, it's not. You don't need to sign anything like that, and I wouldn't recommend working with anyone pressuring you to sign that. Don't be too freaked out about it though. Most agents aren't bad. Just don't be afraid to get rid of the bad ones. A good agent is important. They can be a great source of information.